Little brother, don't trust anyone in this family. The text popped up in the middle of the night. Cold, sharp, like a blade slicing straight through my sleep. Sender, David. My brother. The one who's been dead for 7 years. I froze. The phone shook in my hands, nearly slipping out of my grip. In that silent room, the only sound left was the wind hissing through the crack of the window, and my own heartbeat, pounding so loud it felt like it might crush my chest. I stared at the screen, reading those 12 words over and over, as if by reading them enough, they would vanish. But they didn't. They stayed there, cold, clear, real. Dosa, M. No one else awake. Only me, and a message from someone buried 7 years ago. I told myself, it had to be someone hacking his old number. But then my eyes stopped on those 2 words. Little brother. No one else called me that. No one, except David. And in that instant, the memories I had spent 7 years burying burst open like a coffin lid. That rainy night, the car crushed beneath the bridge, the red glow of taillights across his face, blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. And the last thing he said before his eyes closed, "Run, Jack!" That night, I lost him. I lost my whole family. I didn't reply. I just sat there, my palms wet with sweat, listening to my heart pounding like a war drum inside my chest. It felt like someone was standing right behind me, watching me from the dark. Then, the screen went black. The room sank back into silence. But inside me, everything had just begun. One question echoed in my head. If he's dead, then who just texted me? And the part that scared me the most, I don't know if that message came to save me, or drag me back into hell all over again. My name is Jack Reynolds. I'm 28. I live alone in a small apartment on the edge of Boston. 4 cold white walls, and an office chair that's molded to my shape. Every day is the same. After work, I grab a box of ready-made food from the convenience store, come home, turn on the computer, and sit there until my eyes burn. Yesterday's dishes still lie in the sink, barely rinsed. There's never any laughter in that room. Just the steady hum of a fan, like it's reminding me I'm still breathing. Life looks quiet now, but maybe that's just another way of running away. Because once, I had a family, not a perfect one. Plenty of fights. But in all that chaos, I had one thing to hold on to, David. My older brother, he was 4 years older. When we were kids, he was like a wall shielding me from the wind. Every time our parents fought, he would quietly pull me out to the backyard, drop a baseball cap on my head, and whisper, "Hey, don't trust anyone but me." Got it, little brother. I remember that summer when I was 14. The 2 of us sneaked out with an old bike, pedaled almost 10 miles to a lake just to fish. The sun was brutal. We only had 1 bottle of water, a bag of bread. By the time we came back, we were burnt black, hair sticking to our sweaty faces, holding exactly 2 tiny fish. Dad was waiting at the gate. He yelled at us. I was shaking. But David just stood in front of me, took every word, every blow. Another time, a group of older kids cornered me behind the classrooms. I thought I'd get beaten to a pulp, until I saw David walk up. He didn't say much. He just pulled me to my feet and said, "Anyone who wants to touch him will have to go through me first." Strangely enough, that was all it took. They walked away. Those memories, they were the rare sunlight in a stormy childhood. Then came the year I turned 21. That rainy night, his car went off the bridge into the river. The police said he lost control. No witnesses, no cameras. Everyone called it an accident. But to me, it never was. That funeral was the last time I saw my family stand together. Dad blamed Mom. Mom stayed silent, crying without a sound. A few months later, she left. Dad drowned himself in alcohol. And me, the youngest, there was no one left to call home. I left that town with nothing but a backpack, and the image of David lying still under that cold rain. People say time heals, but for me, time only teaches you how to stay quiet. I built walls around myself. No relationships. Few friends. I buried myself in a screen just so I wouldn't hear his name echo in my head every night. 7 years went by. I thought I'd learned how to live with the emptiness. But then, one text message at 2 a.m., and everything I'd buried cracked wide open in a second. I sat there the whole night, scrolling through old photos on my phone. 2 brothers by the lake, grinning, covered in dirt. Him with his arm around me on my graduation day. Every picture felt like a knife twisting deeper into a wound that never healed. Outside the window, snow kept falling. Inside me, a storm was building. And because of one short message, I'm being dragged back into a past I've been running from for 7 long years. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, turning the screen on, then off, again and again. Those 12 words kept burning in my head. Little brother, don't trust anyone in this family. I tried to text back. Who is this? Message sent. Silence. No reply. No scene. I stayed like that until the sky outside turned silver gray. The sound of snowplows on the street felt like it came from another world. Inside my room, there was only the ticking of the clock and a heartbeat heavy as stone in my chest. The next morning, I went to work with bloodshot eyes. I poured myself a cup of black coffee, drank it, tasted nothing but bitterness. People looked at me, asked a few questions. I forced a smile. 7 years have taught me how to hide everything. I know by now, nobody really wants to hear the truth. The whole day, my mind wasn't there. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's face again. His smile, his hand on my shoulder, that look that used to tell me everything would be fine. And I realized, these 7 years, I've only been living by pretending to forget. That night, I pulled out an old wooden box from under my bed. Inside it were the only pieces of David I still had. A few letters, yellow with age. 2 baseball tickets we never got to use. And his old phone, the one the police gave back to us after the crash. I hadn't touched it in 7 years. Just looking at it made my hands shake. But tonight, for some reason, I needed to know. I plugged it in. The faded screen came to life, slow and dim, like dragging the weight of the past up from the bottom of a river. The startup sound echoed in that dark room, and it gave me chills. The smell of old plastic. And suddenly, I felt like I was back there, standing by that coffin, trembling like I did the day we buried him. I started digging through it. Photos, videos, messages. Everything stopped on the day of the crash, frozen in time, until I saw a folder, named for Jack. I opened it. There was only one note inside. If one day you see this, don't believe what they tell you. My chest tightened. The words were the same as the text I got last night. Not a single word different. In that silent room, I just sat there, staring at the screen, my knuckles turning white around the phone. A cold shiver ran down my spine. And in that moment, I knew that text wasn't a joke. There's something hidden behind David's death. Something he tried to leave for me, but I was never brave enough to face. I took a long breath. For the first time in 7 years, I saw it clearly. There's no running from this anymore. I have to find the truth. Wherever it leads. I thought I had locked that door to the past. But tonight, it's wide open. And I know exactly what's waiting for me on the other side. All the things I've been too afraid to face. Since that night, after the text, everything around me has felt like a fog. Work, home, eating. All of it, just a shell. Inside, there's only one question. Who texted me from David's number? I knew if I just sat there, I'd lose my mind. I had to start somewhere. And there was only one place left that still held his breath. His old laptop. That night, I dug out a dusty backpack from the back of my closet. Inside was a silver laptop, scratched. Keys yellowed. I found the charger and plugged it in. The fan roared in the silent room as it powered up. I sat there frozen, staring at the loading icon spinning slow, like I was calling a ghost back from the dead. The desktop came on. I opened folder after folder. Old college photos, rock music, random files. Then I saw one, a folder I'd never seen before. Draft. Inside, dozens of audio files. My hands turned cold. I put on the headphones, and with my fingers shaking, I clicked the first file. Static. Then a deep, hoarse voice I knew by heart. David's voice. If you're hearing this, Jack, I'm sorry. I'm running out of time. There's something going on in this family. Something you don't know about. I'm trying to handle it. But if I can't, you need to be careful. Don't trust anyone. You hear me, little brother. I froze. My heart was pounding in my head, burning hot, ready to explode. The headphones felt tight, like someone was whispering right in my ear. 7 years. And now his voice, so close, so clear, I almost turned around, expecting him to be right behind me. I ripped the headphones off, gasping for air. The room felt smaller, closing in on me. Cold sweat soaked my back. I put them back on, opened another file, and another. David's voice shifted between urgency and whispers. Fragments of words began piecing together into a blurry picture. He had discovered something dark within the family. He had tried to warn them, but no one listened. He mentioned a meeting with Uncle Mark, the man I'd always thought of as my second father. In one recording, his voice cracked. "I have to meet with Uncle Mark this Saturday. If anything happens after that, dig deeper. I trust you'll know what to do." I stopped the playback. My pulse went wild. Uncle Mark, the man who taught me to drive, took me fishing, picked me up every time Mom and Dad fought. How could that name come up? In my brother's last warning, I couldn't sit still anymore. 3 days later, I took leave from work and drove out of Boston. 3 long hours. The road felt endless, wind slipping through the car window. The radio playing old country songs, songs David used to hum along to. Every melody cut through my memory like a knife. When the sign for the town finally appeared, my hands were slick with sweat. 7 years since I set foot here. Everything felt the same, yet different. The old diner had changed owners. The baseball field where we used to play was overgrown, everything covered in the dust of time. I pulled over in front of my old house. It belongs to someone else now. Through the fence, I saw the porch where we used to sit, where I last saw him alive. A cold wave ran down my spine. I turned away. I couldn't stand it. My real destination was Uncle Mark's house. It sat at the end of a tree-lined street. From a distance, I saw his familiar green pickup parked out front. The lawn was neat. Everything looked the same. But to me, the place reeked of danger. I killed the engine, sat there, listening to my heart pound in my ears. 100 questions spun in my head. If he's involved, how do I face him? And if he isn't, am I about to destroy what's left of this family? Finally, I opened the door. The sun was gone. Only a yellow porch light spilled out through the window. I walked up the wooden steps. My hand trembled as I raised it to knock. And just then, the door slowly opened. The door creaked open. A thin line of yellow light spilled out onto the porch, catching the dust in the air. I froze. Inside, a TV murmured quietly, but no one answered. "Uncle," I called out, my heart pounding. Then a familiar face appeared. Uncle Mark. He was still broad-shouldered, but older now. Gray streaks in his hair, deep lines carved around his eyes. The moment he saw me, he stopped short. "Jack." His voice caught in his throat. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" I nodded stiffly. "I just needed to see you." He opened the door wider, a flicker of caution in his eyes. "Come in. It's cold out there." Inside, everything was neat, just as I remembered. The same wooden table. The faint smell of coffee in the air. I stepped past the threshold, palms slick with sweat. So familiar, and yet strange. He handed me a cup of hot coffee. 7 years, kid. How's Boston? I didn't answer right away. My eyes drifted to a photo on the wall. The 3 of us, David, me, and him, standing by the lake. David's smile, bright as the sun. It made my chest ache. I set the cup down. "Uncle, I need to ask you something." His eyes narrowed slightly. "What is it?" I took a deep breath. I found some recordings on David's laptop. He mentioned a meeting with you, and he said, if anything happened, I should dig into it. The room froze. His hand clenched around his cup, knuckles turning white. "Uncle," I looked straight at him, "was my brother's death really just an accident?" He stood. The scrape of the chair on the wooden floor sounded like a blade. He walked to the window, silent for a long time. "That day," he said at last, voice low and rough, "David did come to see me. He had found out something about me and your father. A big deal. An investment your dad was trying to hide." I felt the blood rush to my ears. "He was trying to handle it alone," Uncle continued, "to keep the family from being dragged down. But on his way back," he turned, his eyes locking on mine. His voice dropped, sharp as a gust of wind. "A car ran him off the road. The ground vanished beneath me. The words shattered in my head, one by one. Someone, on purpose." My voice was barely a whisper. He nodded. "I didn't see who, but before it happened, he called me. Told me if I still cared, to protect you." My hands balled into fists. "Then why stay silent all these years?" His shoulders sank. "Your father begged me. If this came out, the whole family would fall apart. I chose silence. But Jack, believe me, I never wanted any of this. The anger burned up my throat. And what about me? 7 years I've been living with one question. Why did my brother die? He walked up, placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. If you keep going down this road, you'd better be ready. David left something for you. He said, when the time comes, his little brother will find it. I whispered, I already found it. The folder, the note, and now the message. 7 years later, message. His face froze. At 2 a.m., from his number, I showed him the screen. The text still there. He stared at it, his face drained of color. If that's true, then whatever system David set up, it's begun. He saw this coming. Uncle sighed deeply. Jack, you have to find what he hid. It's the only clue. I left his house when the town was already deep in night. The streets empty. Streetlights flickered across the windshield. Inside my head, everything spun. The car that ran him off the road. The secret buried. And this safe place David had left for me. I pulled over on the roadside, trying to breathe. My phone lit up in my hand. Out of habit, I checked it. A new message. Jack, start where we always promised we'd return. No name. No number. Just those words. I stared at the screen, every vein in my head tightening. The first message in 7 years. And now, the second. I started the car, my hands shaking. This time, I can't wait any longer. The second message burned on my screen. Start from the place we always promised to go back to. I stared at it. And there was only one place it could mean. The lake, where we once swore we'd come back and build a fishing shack. The country night was pitch black. Only the headlights cut a narrow path ahead. The deeper I drove, the narrower the road. Wind lashed against the windows, howling, cold as ice. My hands gripped the wheel, but my palms were slick with sweat. The path to the lake was overgrown, swallowed by weeds. I stopped the car. Got out. The whole world was nothing but wind sweeping through the trees. The old wooden sign with the lake's name hung crooked, its paint flaking away. I switched on my flashlight and walked, step by step. Under its thin beam, the water looked like a sheet of black glass with no bottom. A sudden gust sent dead leaves swirling, and for a second, I felt it. Someone was out there, watching me. I spun around, flashlight sweeping across the trees. Nothing. Only wind, and the hammering in my ears. I crouched low, following the shoreline. Then the beam of light caught something metallic. I brushed aside a layer of wet leaves and pulled out an old steel box. Its lock rusted shut. My hands trembled as I pried it open. Inside, a notebook wrapped in plastic. And a black USB drive. I opened the notebook first. The first page, in handwriting, I knew by heart. If you found this, it means I didn't make it back. I clenched my jaw and flipped the page. I've put everything on the USB. Don't trust anyone, not even the ones you think are closest to you. And if they find you first, run. Short, sharp words. But they cut like barbed wire straight into my chest. I hugged the notebook to me and hurried back to the car. Each step felt heavy, like walking on water. Back at the small motel in town, I locked the door, drew the curtains tight. My hands were wet with sweat as I plugged the USB into my laptop. The fan roared loud in the silence. The screen came alive with folders, audio files, videos, scanned emails. I clicked on the first recording. If anyone's hearing this besides Jack, that means I'm dead. And my death wasn't an accident. I'm being watched. These people will do anything to shut me up. Everything is in this drive. David's voice, hoarse, fast, with the sound of wind rushing around him. I could hear his breathing, heavy, frantic, like he was recording while driving for his life. Jack, find Matthew Harris. He's the only one you can trust. And whatever you do, don't go to the local police. They're all bought. I opened the next file. A hidden camera video in a dark room. And then, my father. Clear as day. His voice deep and cold. Move the money to Cayman before he finds out. And deal with him before he opens his mouth. Ice flooded my veins. 7 years of doubt, all laid bare. I searched for Matthew Harris, an investigative journalist. Retired. The last known address, 3 hours away. I wrote it down. The clock read 2:57 a.m. I closed the laptop, trying to steady myself. And just then, a new email notification popped up. No sender, only a subject line. Don't do this alone. I opened it. Inside, a single photo. Me, standing in front of Uncle Mark's house tonight, looking at the door, taken from across the street. Beneath the picture, in red letters, "We see every move you make. This is only a warning. Next time, it won't be just a warning." The blood in my veins turned to ice. My hand shook so hard the phone almost slipped from my fingers. And then, from outside, I heard it. An engine stopping in front of the motel. Headlights washed across the curtains. Someone was out there. And in that moment, I knew. I was being watched. Every second. Even here, I froze. The headlights outside went dark, leaving behind a thick, suffocating silence. Only the sound of the wind scraping along the walls. Then, footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Each one hitting like a hammer on a raw nerve. I peered through a crack in the curtain. A tall, thin figure stood a few yards from the window. The streetlight cut across his shoulders, leaving his face swallowed in shadow. He just stood there, watching. My breath caught in my throat. I shut the laptop, grabbed the USB and notebook, and shoved them into my backpack. David's words echoed in my head. "If they find you first, run." I eased open the back door. The creak of the hinge felt loud enough to shatter my chest. The alley behind the motel was pitch black. I held my breath, moving one step at a time toward the parking lot. Cold wind clawed at my neck. My hands were slick with sweat. At the car, I glanced back. The figure hadn't moved. Still standing there. Still watching. I yanked open the door, slid inside, turned the key. The headlights flared to life. And in that instant, he turned his head, looked straight at me. That stare, cold, unblinking. I floored the gas. The car shot out of the lot. The road stretched into a tunnel of black. I didn't dare slow down. In the rearview mirror, sometimes, faint headlights. I couldn't tell if they were real or just my mind unraveling. It wasn't until dawn that I finally stopped at a gas station. I stumbled into the bathroom, looked into the mirror. Pale face, bloodshot eyes, hands still shaking. I told myself, find Matthew Harris. Now, or I won't make it through today. 4 more hours behind the wheel, and I reached the small town. I parked a block away. Number 17. Peeling paint on the wooden door. Curtains drawn tight. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Inside, a chair scraped across the floor. The door cracked open. A man with messy hair and wary eyes peered out. "Who is it?" His voice rasped. "I'm Jack Reynolds. I need to see Matthew Harris. My brother, David Reynolds, said you're the only one I can trust." At that name, he froze. His eyes sharpened instantly. "Don't move," he said, yanking the door open. He scanned the street, then grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. The door slammed shut. "Do you even realize what you've just dragged to my doorstep?" He growled. "I do," I said, pulling the USB from my bag. "My brother died because of this. I'm being followed." Matthew squinted at me, still suspicious. "Prove you are who you say you are." I pulled out the notebook, opened it to the first page. David's handwriting. He stared at it for a long moment, then exhaled slowly, his voice softer. "You really are his brother." He plugged in the USB. The moment the files appeared, his face changed. "God, I told him not to do this alone." He looked at me, eyes grave. "What's in here isn't just about one man. This is a network, a laundering machine. Your father's just the tip of it." The floor tilted beneath me. Then, what do I do? Matthew printed out documents, scrawled an address on a slip of paper, and shoved it into my hand. "Go here. A friend of mine will get you out of their reach. If you hesitate, they'll get to you first." I clenched the paper. "And you?" He gave a thin, bitter smile. "I've been in this too long. But you still have a way out. Now go." As I reached the door, he called after me. "Jack, don't trust anyone, even the ones who offer you a hand." I hit the road again. The sky was bright, but inside me, it was all shadow. Half an hour out of town, my phone buzzed. A new message. "The address he gave you is a trap. Turn around. Trust no one." My chest tightened. I glanced in the rearview mirror. A black SUV had slipped into my lane, keeping its distance. My grip on the wheel tightened. Sweat slid down my temple. Then, a light tap on the driver's side window. Even though the car was moving, I jerked my head to the left. Nothing. No one. Only the empty road. And in that moment, I realized I was being hunted so closely. It didn't matter if the car was moving. There was no safe place left. The black SUV clung to me like a shadow. Every time I sped up, it sped up. When I slowed down, it slowed. No horn, no flashing lights. Just there, silent, relentless. My hands locked around the wheel. If I kept running, they'd corner me. I had to end this now. I swerved hard onto a narrow road cutting through a pine forest. The trees blurred into black streaks. Wind howled outside, the engine screaming. In the mirror, their headlights still burned. Closer. At a blind curve, I slammed the brakes. Tires shrieked. The car spun sideways, blocking the road. Forcing them to stop, metal screeched. I threw my door open and jumped out, a steel tire iron in my hand. The smell of gas and burning rubber choked the air. Their doors opened. 2 men in dark clothes stepped out. One broad, the other tall and thin. Heavy steps, no rush. Like they knew I had nowhere to run. "I know what you're doing," I shouted, voice raw. "What do you want?" The tall one stopped, eyes sharp as blades. "You're walking into the same place your brother paid for," he said, his voice low, every word like stone. "Keep going, and you'll end the same way." My teeth clenched. "So you admit it? His death wasn't an accident." The big one let out a short laugh, stepping closer. "He died because he wouldn't listen." He lunged, grabbing for my backpack. I dodged and swung the iron. Metal slammed into bone with a hard crack. He stumbled back, hissing. The tall one charged. He grabbed my shirt and slammed me against the car. Pain exploded through my back, but I twisted, drove my elbow into his ribs. He folded. I broke free, dove into the driver's seat, and turned the key. The engine roared. I floored it. Tires screamed, smoke curling off the road. In the rearview mirror, I saw them running. Too late. I was gone. I drove like a man possessed until the city lights rose on the horizon. Sweat poured down my arms, my breath coming in ragged gasps. But all I could think about was one thing. I had to reach the place Matthew told me about. By dusk, I pulled up in front of a row of abandoned warehouses on the edge of town. The sky was deep orange. The brick walls were stained, rust crawling down like scars. Empty, silent. I killed the engine, grabbed my bag, and stepped out. The air smelled of iron and damp dust. Every step crunched on gravel. My heart pounded. A metal door stood ajar. I pushed it. The hinge screamed. Inside was darkness. I switched on my phone's flashlight. The vast empty space swallowed the light. Each footstep echoed back at me, like someone else was walking right behind me. "Hello," I called. No answer. Only the wind whispering through the broken roof. Suddenly, the overhead lights snapped on. Blinding. I threw up a hand against the glare. A cold, deep voice echoed through the warehouse. "Finally, you came, Jack." I lowered my hand, and there, standing in the middle of the warehouse, was my father. He wore a gray suit, his face older, harsher, but his eyes, the same. Calm, cold. "Dad?" My voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" He looked at me, no emotion at all. "You shouldn't have come. You're walking into things you don't understand." I took a step forward, fists clenching. Everything David said was true. "You knew. You stood there while he died." Silence. Then he spoke, voice heavy as iron. "David died because he dared to turn against his own blood." The words cut through me like ice. The room tilted. "Blood," I shouted. "You call that blood?" He died trying to hold on to what little decency this family had left. He sighed. "The world isn't as simple as you think. The deeper you dig, the more you lose. I've already lost everything." I roared, my voice breaking, and then, from the shadows on both sides, figures stepped out, one by one, closing in, silent. The figures stepped out of the shadows, closing in around me. The cold concrete floor, the harsh white lights above, stretched their shadows long, like chains. My father stood still in the center of the warehouse. His voice cut through the air, low, steady, and cold. "You don't understand, Jack. Everything David found was only the surface. This family has been in this game for decades. No one walks away." I gripped the backpack on my shoulder, swallowing hard. "He didn't choose it," I said. "And neither do I." He tilted his head, his eyes deep and dark as a well. "David was stubborn. He thought he could pull us out of the mud. You've seen the price he paid. And if you keep going, yours will be the same." The men tightened the circle. I stepped back until my spine hit a wooden crate, cold against my skin. I shouted, "Dad, I only need one thing. The truth. Who ran him off the road that night?" The air turned heavy. Then he spoke slowly. "It wasn't a stranger. It was someone you once trusted." "Uncle Mark?" My voice cracked. He nodded. "Mark followed orders. To protect all of us." It cut straight through me like ice. "Family." I exhaled, my eyes burning. "What family?" "A family that let my brother die. That left me living like a ghost for 7 years." I screamed, my voice breaking. "You killed him." That outburst was the signal. 2 men lunged, slamming me against the crate. A fist gripped my collar. Hot breath on my face. I struggled, but they pinned me down. My father walked closer, his voice like steel. "Hand me the USB, and this ends." "No," I gasped. "I'm bringing all of it into the light." And then, a police siren split the night. Red and blue lights slashed through the cracks in the warehouse doors. Tires skidding. Car doors slamming. Heavy footsteps rushing closer. The doors burst open. A group of people stormed in. Leading them, Matthew, holding up a phone, streaming live. "Stop," he shouted. "Everyone's watching. It's all live." The whole warehouse froze. The men holding me let go. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. Some of them moved to strike, but my father raised a hand. Still calm, but for the first time, I saw hesitation in his eyes. Matthew pulled me behind him and whispered, "Come on, Jack. The files are online now. There's no way to hide this anymore." My father's gaze locked on mine. His voice low, heavy with anger, and something else. "You've chosen the same road your brother took, Jack. Do you know what that means?" I stopped in the doorway, tears hot on my cheeks, my voice shaking but steady. "It means, at least this time, I'm not running." We ran to Matthew's car and sped off. I looked back through the window. They were still standing there like statues. My father's figure, unmoving, bathed in the flash of red and blue. His eyes followed me. No longer angry, just something else, something I couldn't name. The car tore down the road, leaving the cold white light behind. Matthew drove fast, his voice urgent. "From here on, you disappear. This is just the beginning. They won't stop coming for you." I turned to the window. The wind hit my face, but for the first time in years, I could breathe. In the rearview mirror, the warehouse lights faded into nothing. I closed my eyes, and in that dark, I saw David smile, close enough that I could almost hear his voice. "You did it, little brother." Matthew's car turned onto a rough dirt road, winding through low hills draped in mist. I sat in the back seat, clutching my backpack to my chest, my hands still trembling. The crunch of gravel under the tires sounded like a blade being sharpened, slow and cold. Inside, I felt hollow. Everything that happened in that warehouse replayed on a loop. My father's cold face, the tightening circle around me, the moment I finally understood that David hadn't just died in an accident. One night, and everything I thought I knew about my family was gone. Matthew pulled up in front of a small wooden cabin, standing alone in the fog. No streetlights, only the sound of wind moving through the trees. He opened the door. "Stay here tonight," he said quietly. "At least it's safe for now." I stepped out. The night air was thick with mist, so cold it sank into my bones. Inside, the cabin was plain. A narrow bed, an old wooden table, a window looking out over a pale, fog-covered hill. Matthew poured me a cup of hot coffee and set it in front of me. "You need to disappear for a while, Jack," he said slowly. "What you've put out there, they won't stop. But for now, we've bought some time." I stared at the table. "My father? He's not going to let this go." Matthew nodded. "No, but at least now he has to face the light. Your only job now is to survive." I didn't answer. Outside, the wind scraped against the wooden walls. The old clock ticked, each second sharp and dry. The room felt endless, and I felt like nothing more than a shadow, stranded in the middle of it. After a long time, I whispered, "David." Matthew stayed silent, letting me speak. I left him. That day, I turned my back because I was scared. For 7 years, I let him carry it all alone. If I had stayed, my voice cracked, maybe it wouldn't have ended like this. Matthew put a hand on my shoulder, firm and steady. "Jack, some things are bigger than one person. But last night, you stood your ground. You stopped running. That's what David would have wanted to see." I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window and watched the slow approach of morning. Fog lay heavy over the hills, and in that pale blur I saw him, David, sitting beside me, holding out the old wooden fishing rod we once shared. I reached for it. My hand closed on nothing but cold air. A single tear dropped onto the pillow, leaving a dark mark. And then the first light of day touched my face. Matthew came out with a small bag. "New papers. There's a car that will take you north. No calls, no messages, no contact. Not even with me. From now on, think of yourself as gone." I stood, backpack in hand. Each step to the door felt like walking with stones tied to my legs. Before I got into the car, I turned back to look at the cabin. We stood there in silence, with only the wind between us. "Thank you," I said softly, afraid the sound might break the stillness. Matthew just nodded. There was a sadness in his eyes. "Don't thank me. Live. And one day, tell this story in a way that David would be proud of." The car rolled forward, leaving the cabin behind. In the rearview mirror, its outline faded, swallowed by the fog. Ahead, the road stretched white, with no end in sight. I sat still, gripping David's notebook. On the last page, his handwriting trembled. "If you're reading this, it means you stood up. Don't let my darkness swallow you. I believe in you." Tears came again, but this time there was something warmer inside me. The quiet belief that my life will not end in the dark. The northern road stretched out, white in the fog. I leaned my head against the window, listening to the steady hum of the engine. To anyone else, it's just a sound. To me, right now, it was a clock, counting down, second by second, as it carried me away from my old life. The first day of disappearing, I felt nothing, just a body moving out of habit. The second day, anger burned hot, rising like fire. By the third, it all dissolved into a silence so wide, I felt like I was walking through a white desert with no end. I stopped in a small border town. Here, nobody knew my name. Nobody called out to me. I rented a cheap room at the edge of the woods. Every night the room was so dark I could hear everything. The ticking of a clock, the wind scraping across the tin roof, the wood creaking in the cold. For the first few days, I didn't leave that room. I lay on the bed, staring up at the stained wooden ceiling, holding David's notebook, every page covered with his handwriting. But I always stopped on the same one. "One day, we'll go back to the lake. Just the two of us. I'll fish. You'll fall asleep on the old wooden chair. We won't need anyone else." I read those words until my throat closed. I pressed the notebook over my face, my tears soaking into the paper. A week later, I stepped outside. The morning air was so cold it stung, but I took a long breath. I walked down the dirt road into the forest. Dry leaves cracked beneath my shoes. Birds called somewhere far away. Sounds so ordinary, yet I realized I hadn't truly heard them in 7 years. Then I saw them, a group of kids playing on the grass, chasing each other, laughing. And in that moment, I saw myself and David again, running by the lake as children, our hands covered in mud, laughing until we couldn't breathe. I stood there a long time watching. My chest ached. This world still holds moments that pure. But David will never see them again. I started to live slower. By day, I bought an old camera at a flea market, learning to capture quiet things around the town. Sunlight cutting through pine trees, a dog napping in the street, a steaming cup of coffee on a wooden counter. By night, when the town slept, I opened my laptop and went through the files Matthew had decoded. I saved everything, not to use now, but for a day when I'll be strong enough to tell this story myself. A month later, a short letter from Matthew arrived. "From here on, don't look back. Let memory guide you forward." I burned the letter on the porch. The small yellow flame danced in the wind until all that was left was ash. For the first time, I felt truly alone. No one left to lean on, but nothing left to lose either. On my last day in town, I walked to the lake. The water was flat as glass. The wind cold. I sat down and stared at the distance. I picked up a small branch and let it fall onto the surface. It drifted, turning slowly. I whispered, "David, I'll live for the both of us. One day, I'll return to the place we promised. I'll build that wooden shack. I'll sit there with my fishing rod, and I'll always keep a chair empty beside me." A breeze rose, pushing the branch farther out, and in that moment, I saw David's smile reflected on the water. When the sun went down, I stood. I didn't look back. For the first time in 7 years, I felt lighter as I walked away. Not because the wound had healed, but because I had chosen to keep going. There are nights when I still lie awake, in this quiet room, listening to the wind slip through the cracks like waves that never stop. Sometimes I wonder, if I hadn't received David's message that night, maybe by now I'd still be just a shadow. Or maybe I'd been dead on the inside a long time ago. But another thought keeps coming back. Maybe I had to go through all of this, just to finally learn how to stand still. I don't know where my future will lead. I don't know if one day my father will find me, or if that network in the dark is still watching. But there is one thing I know. For the first time in years, I'm not running from myself anymore. In this remote place, I've started writing everything down. Not to sell it, not to be pitied. Just so that one day, when I'm ready, I'll read it out loud. As a way to tell David, I kept my promise, brother. Some mornings, I walk out early, stand deep in the woods. I hear the crunch of dry leaves under my feet, birdsong, the wind moving gently through the branches, and I realize, for so many years, I lived deaf, only hearing the fear inside me. Now, I'm learning to listen again, to the stillness, to my own heartbeat. I've learned that peace doesn't come when the world changes. It comes in that moment when you finally stop running from yourself. Sometimes my father's image comes back in my dreams, standing in that warehouse, shadows behind him. But I'm no longer as angry. Now, I just feel sorry for him. Sorry for a man who lost everything, just to hold on to an empty shell. Someday, maybe I'll see him again, not to get revenge, but to tell him this: David still lives, inside me. Once a neighbor's kid asked me, "Why do you always take pictures of trees?" I smiled. Because for a long time I told him, I forgot how beautiful this world could be. He grinned and ran off. And for a moment, in that smile, I saw a little bit of David. I still keep David's notebook close. Inside it, along with secrets, are all the dreams he never got to live. A wooden cabin by the lake, 2 chairs, a fishing rod. One day, I'll go back to that lake. I'll build that cabin. I'll fish alone. But there will always be an empty chair beside me. A chair for David. A chair for the part of me that was lost. People say life is like a lake. It looks calm. But beneath, there are hidden currents. Sometimes it takes a single stone to stir it awake. David was that stone. He sank and disappeared. But because of him, the still water finally began to move. If you're listening to this, maybe you carry your own shadow too. I just want you to know, you're not alone. And when you feel yourself being swallowed whole, remember this: don't let someone else's darkness take you under. I close David's notebook. Outside, snow falls in silence. I stand. Open the door. The wind rushes in, cold but real. I set his notebook back on the table, open to the last page, and then I step out, let the snow fall on my shoulders, and walk into a tomorrow no one knows. Before the door shuts behind me, I look back at the empty room and whisper, "Thank you, brother."